Hitler believed that all expression of beauty, as in art and music, as well as technological advancement, was exclusively the creative product of the Aryan, and considered them, quote, higher humanity. He went on about the Aryans, saying that he is the Prometheus of mankind, from whose bright forehead the divine spark of genius has sprung at all times. Have you ever wondered about the origin of aliens, ghosts, or demons? Have you ever asked your priest or pastor if the Bible can explain these things, only to come away with no real answers? I don't know about you, but I have. So, I've spent the last 15 years researching these topics, and I've come away with a very compelling explanation for many of the world's mysteries. I want to start a conversation about the things your pastor is afraid to talk about. This is Audra Moore, and you're listening to Evil's Ancient Origins. As I've covered on a previous episode, Jack Parsons was an American rocket engineer, chemist, and occultist that lived in Southern California during the 1940s and who dreamed of taking flight to the stars. His occult practices were intertwined with his rocketry, often reciting Aleister Crowley's Hymn to Pan and performing rituals in conjunction with launching each rocket. But his team of rocket scientists, known as the Suicide Squad, weren't the only ones who were blurring the lines between rocketry and occultism at the time. During World War II, the Nazi rocket program was indeed associated with occult practices and supernatural beliefs. Several key figures in the Nazi rocket program, including Wernher von Braun, were involved in or influenced by occult and esoteric ideas. In fact, the Nazi regime as a whole was preoccupied with supernatural doctrines and esoteric practices, including astrology, divining, clairvoyance, and parapsychology. This fascination extended to their scientific pursuits, including their rocket program. Nazi officials believed that these occult practices could provide them with an edge in developing advanced weapons and technology. The Nazis even incorporated occult practices into their military strategies. Some Nazi leaders, including Hitler, were known to consult astrologers and other occult practitioners for guidance on military decisions. These occultists were thought to have special entry into an unseen realm where uncommon knowledge could be accessed. The knowledge that they accessed was what formed the foundations of their core beliefs and strategies. The Nazi belief in Aryan superiority was one of these ideas rooted in occult and esoteric traditions, and it was used to justify the idea that they were destined to rule over other races, leading to their military expansionism. This belief system was used to motivate troops and rationalize aggressive military strategy. But the idea that valuable hidden knowledge can be gained when tapping into the spiritual realm isn't a new concept. Throughout the history of man, this has been a common theme, even finding its roots in the Garden of Eden. For example, back in the 1500s, John Dee, a British nobleman with his scryer Edward Kelly, practiced divination to gain strategic political advantages for his queen, Elizabeth I. I'm planning to cover more on John Dee in a later episode, so keep an eye out for that. The spiritual aspect of the Nazi movement was based on the idea that their Aryan heritage afforded them a supernatural power that their society had yet to tap into. In an interview with a Leipzig newspaper in 1931, Hitler stated, "The Frenchman Gobineau and the Englishman, Chamberlain, were inspired by our concept of a new order. A new order, I tell you, or, if you prefer, an ideological glimpse into history in accordance with the basic principle of the blood. We do not judge by merely artistic or military standards, or even by purely scientific ones. We judge by the spiritual energy which a people is capable of putting forth, which will enable it in 10 years to recapture what it has lost in 1,000 years of warfare. I intend to set up a 1,000-year Reich, and anyone who supports me in battle is a fellow fighter for a unique spiritual, I would almost say divine, creation. Hitler believed that all expression of beauty, as in art and music, as well as technological advancement, was exclusively the creative product of the Aryan, and considered them, quote, higher humanity. He went on about the Aryans, saying that he is the Prometheus of mankind, from whose bright forehead the divine spark of genius has sprung at all times. He later states that the serpent that brought about the contamination of pure Aryan blood was, of course, the Jew. The mightiest counterpart of the Aryan is represented by the Jew. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. Quite bold claims indeed. So, to gain a better understanding of this, we need to ask, who was Prometheus? And what was the spark of genius he mentioned? Prometheus was a titan in Greek mythology who stole fire from God's realm and brought it to humanity, supposedly out of pity, as an attempt to, quote, enlighten their simple existence. The spark of fire being the source of their enlightenment, a metaphor for a hidden wisdom or knowledge that elevates a person intellectually and spiritually. In case you aren't familiar with the definition of what a titan is, it is as follows. From Greek mythology, a giant, powerful deity who belonged to a generation of gods that ruled the world before the Olympian gods, like Zeus, took over. They were considered the first generation of children born of Uranus, the sky, and Gaia, the earth, and were often associated with cosmic forces like light, time, and the ocean. Now you must see the irony here. Hitler is blaming the Jew for diminishing the, quote, divine spark given to humanity by Prometheus, when in actuality Prometheus was the origin of the corruption of God's creation through the fire of enlightenment, just as the serpent in the garden provided the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. In case you didn't know, Prometheus is a common symbol of the Luciferians who worship Lucifer, the light bearer, also known as that old serpent, the devil. In the Bible, Satan is known as the accuser, as well as the deceiver of the brethren, or humanity. It should now be obvious that Luciferians were the architects of the whole SS movement. Heinrich Himmler, leader of the SS, took his mission very seriously and deeply integrated mysticism into the organization. He viewed the SS as a spiritual order and established its ideological center at Wewelsburg Castle, where various esoteric and occult practices were conducted. According to Wikipedia, the architects called the planned expansion of the existing complex the center of the world. This complex was to be the headquarters for the, quote, species-appropriate religion, and an estate and training facility for the SS Leader Corps. This spiritual dimension of their philosophy was meant to inspire SS troops with a higher purpose in their military endeavors. There are claims that the Nazis conducted experiments into the occult, particularly at locations like Huska Castle, which was occupied by the Wehrmacht, or defense forces of Nazi Germany, until 1945. Some sources suggest that these experiments were attempts to harness the powers of hell, searching for supernatural advantage. There you go, their true colors shining through. The Nazis adopted several symbols with esoteric meaning, such as the swastika and the black sun, which were prominently displayed on military uniforms and equipment. They believed that these symbols not only signified esoteric knowledge of the Aryan race, but would supposedly imbue them with supernatural strength and occult power as well. The black sun, a type of sun wheel symbol which incorporated 6 sets of SS insignia, encompassing a solid black circle, was created by Wilhelm Landig, a former SS officer. Landig intended for the symbol to produce a mystic energy that would renew the Aryan race, the pseudo-scientific historical race who supposedly descended from the Proto-Indo-Europeans. The word Aryan is derived from a modern Indo-Iranian term meaning noble. The symbol was originally designed for installation on the Wewelsburg Castle floor during its renovation. Tracing the origin of the swastika is more difficult because various forms have been found in multiple ancient cultures around the world, and they have had many meanings. In regions of India, though, the symbol represents divinity and spirituality. The name swastika is a Sanskrit word meaning conducive to well-being. In Hinduism, the right-facing symbol, as it was used by the Nazis, symbolizes the sun, standing for prosperity and good luck. So, it's another allusion to the sun, fire, and Prometheus. At the root of the spiritual belief system of the Nazis was Theosophy, which influenced the Thule Society, which actually helped to establish the Nazi Party. Theosophy was also incorporated in Ariosophy, the racial ideology that supported Nazi policies. Associated closely with the esoteric doctrines of Gnosticism, Hermeticism, and Neoplatonism, Theosophy was founded in New York City in 1875. Co-founder Helena Blavatsky described Theosophy as the synthesis of science, religion, and philosophy, proclaiming that it was reviving an ancient wisdom which underlay all the world's religions, except the Jewish religion, I guess. Very interesting. Driven by the esoteric pursuits, the Ahnenerbe, an SS Research Institute, conducted expeditions to various parts of the world in search of occult artifacts and ancient knowledge that could potentially be used for military purposes. While these expeditions were often more pseudo-archaeological than military in nature, they were part of the broader Nazi strategy to gain supernatural advantages, placing much value on what the ancients knew. As for their technological advancements, a Polish author, Igor Witkowski, claimed in his book The Truth About the Wonder Weapon that Nazi scientists worked on a top-secret UFO-type machine known as the Die Glock, or the Bell. He wrote that it was being engineered during the 1940s and associated it with anti-gravity, free energy, and Nazi occultism. Another author, Nick Cook, in his book The Hunt for Zero Point, described Witkowski's claims of a device that was a glowing, rotating contraption, rumored to have some kind of an anti-gravity or anti-gravitational effect. It may have been a time machine or part of an SS anti-gravity program for a flying saucer. It was stated that all the scientists who survived the dangerous development of the device were eliminated once the war had ended in order to prevent the spread of the technology used in developing it. According to Wikipedia, after World War II, many Nazi scientists, including those involved in their rocket program, were brought to the United States through Operation Paperclip. Some of these scientists, like Wernher von Braun, who designed the Saturn V rocket, were reportedly deeply entrenched in occult ideology, importing their beliefs into the highest positions of the American technology sector. Could this device, or others like it, be at the root of the American space race that was to come? This leads us back to the fantastical idea of taking flight to the stars. Have you ever considered what may have sparked the imagination of man to believe that he could explore the stars? I mean, what could bring humanity to even imagine such a thing? Actually, most early civilizations from across the globe described these sky gods in their folklore and cave paintings, who arrived on the scene millennia ago, influencing the trajectory of mankind, much like the Greek Titans born of the sky and the earth. The war between the Titans and the Olympian gods resulted in the Titans being imprisoned in Tartarus, a dungeon for tormented souls. A story much like that described in ancient Hebrew texts of warring angelic beings. Not to mention the Indian wars of the gods in their ancient writings. Mesopotamian cuneiform texts give detailed accounts of their Titan-like Anunnaki. These Anunnaki were worshipped not only by the Mesopotamians, but also by the Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians as well. They were considered the descendants of An, who was their god of the sky and ruler of the heavens. Myths depict them as celestial gods who came from the heavens and involve the Anunnaki bringing wisdom and passing judgment on humanity. Again, the Bible describes a race of giants who lived in Canaan known as the Anakim, who were the sons of Anak. Is this only a coincidence? The similarities, I mean. The Bible gives the same story as these ancient myths, only from a different perspective. Genesis chapter 6 explains that there were angelic beings on the earth who, over time, having lust for the beautiful human women, decided to go against God's design, overstepping their assigned roles, as it states in the book of Jude, and intercepted humanity's destiny only to satisfy their own desires. They made wives of the women, and their offspring were the giants and the lands, the Nephilim, whom the Israelites had to conquer. Could these angels be the sky gods and the earth representatives, the human women, which we see described by the Greeks as being Uranus, the sky, and Gaia, the earth? The Bible describes Lucifer as being the prince of the power of the air in Ephesians chapter 2:2, which could also be translated metaphorically as the sky. A little-known text in most Christian circles, titled The Book of Enoch, depicts this story in further detail. And once you've read this book, you'll never see the canonical scriptures in the same way again. You'll begin to recognize that there are these little seeds of its content sprinkled throughout the entire canon, which point to this deeper truth of the biblical texts. Little hints that we usually gloss over, never giving them a second thought, that come alive as you read them again with fresh eyes. The Bible is full of deeper messages if you're willing to seek them out. The Book of Enoch tells a story of fallen angels who mated with human women, sired the Nephilim, and taught them forbidden knowledge, such as weaponry and war, knowing that the very act of defying God would necessitate the cultivation of an army of their own. I believe that these star gods, having heavenly technology, have secretly dangled the proverbial carrot of knowledge in front of the hungry noses of humans every generation since, falsely promising that they too would achieve this godlike status once enlightenment had run its full course. Yet, time is man's enemy. The mere 120-year lifespan afforded to mankind will never allow him to achieve this enlightenment. The Nephilim were granted by God only 500 years of life, instead of the immortality of their angelic fathers, and, much like the Nephilim, man has begun to imagine ways to extend his years. Could this grasping at the stars be man's attempt to reach for immortality? As the film Interstellar depicts, these so-called enlightened men have determined that they aren't meant to save the world, they're meant to leave it, imagining that they can somehow escape the foretold judgment of the one true living God. This is Audra Moore, and you're listening to Evil's Ancient Origins. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and will join us again next time when we start another conversation about the things your pastor is afraid to talk about. Look for us again next week on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever your favorite podcasts are found.